Hello, this is Jacqueline from Jack Knits, and we're going to be talking about double knitting today. Now, a while back, I loaded a video about how to do double knitting in the round, just like this, where you've got one solid color on one side and a different color on the other. It's a really fun way to knit, and I have a complete video on how to do this double knitting in the round, so I suggest that you watch that, and that will give you some introduction to what we're going to talk about today, which is how to do a double knitting decrease stitch and a double knitting increase stitch. Because if you're using double knitting in any type of project, chances are you're going to need to decrease or increase. Like for this, I'm working on a hat, so eventually I'm going to be working my way up and I'm going to get to the crown and I'm going to need to do some decreases. So there is some special techniques you need to learn to do a decrease in double knitting, which I'm going to show you in this video. So let's take a look. All right, we have worked several rows of double knitting and now I want to do a decrease. So what we need to do when we're decreasing in double knitting is we need to handle a decrease stitch by decreasing both one color at a time. So I want to decrease the green stitch first and then decrease the pink stitch. But you see that's a problem right now because they are not next to each other. So what I need to do is correct that, and I need to switch the order of these first two pairs of stitches so that I've got two greens together and two pinks together. So I will have green, green, pink, pink instead of my green, pink, green, pink. Okay, so I just need to do a little rearranging and then I'll be able to do the decreases of the same color together. So you can do that in a couple different ways. You can do that by kind of dropping the stitch in the middle here and picking that up. So what you would do is kind of insert your right needle through the green and the next green stitch, skipping over that back stitch, and then sliding them off your left needle, and then immediately picking that up again, the stitch that you dropped off, and putting it back on your left needle. And then switching those two green ones over, okay? So now you can see that I have two green together and two pink. Now, if that is too scary for you to drop a stitch, sometimes we're like, oh, I dropped a stitch, even though you're dropping it for just a fraction of a second. If you don't want to do that, there is a different way to do that. So let me get these back in the order that they were, and I'll show you a little different way to do it if you feel a little safer doing it this way. You can instead slip the first stitch purlwise, so just slip that over to your other needle, then slip these next two together knitwise. All right, so that switches the order of those two stitches, so we can put them back on the other needle, but you notice that these stitches are now twisted. So when I switch to the other needle, I need to untwist them. So to untwist the pink, untwist the green. This one's okay, so we don't need to untwist that one, and slide that one back. So there we go. Now I've got my green stitches together and my pink stitches together. Either way you can do it, that's fine. Now I can make a decrease stitch on my green and a decrease stitch on my pink. Now, it depends on which decrease stitches you want to do, on which direction you want your decrease to lean. So decrease stitches either are right leaning decreases or left leaning decreases. Whatever you are choosing to do, you want to do the same right or left leaning decrease for both the green and the pink stitches, or your front stitches and your back stitches. So let's start by doing the left leaning decrease first. So to do a left leaning decrease on our knit stitches here, we're going to do a slip slip knit stitch. So if you're familiar with that, that's slipping both stitches knitwise, bringing them to the other needle, and then knitting those two stitches together through the back loop. Remember, both yarns are in the back when we're doing the double knitting. When you're knitting stitches, both yarns are in the back. So that did a left leaning, you can kind of see that here, a left leaning decrease stitch for my knit stitch. So now I need to do a left leaning decrease for my back stitch, my purl stitches, or my pink stitches in this case. So to that I need to do a purl two together. So we're going to bring our stitches together, or in front, and purl our pink stitches both together. And that will give a also left leaning decrease for those back stitches. All right, so that's how you do a left leaning decrease. Let's knit a couple stitches here, and then we will do a right leaning decrease. So let's just stitch over a few pairs. Okay, now let's do a right leaning decrease. And again, we need to switch the order of our stitches for these first two pairs. So let's do it the non-scary way by slipping and slipping it this way and then untwisting them and putting them back. Okay, so now we've got 2 green, 2 pink. And to do a right slanting decrease for the knit stitches, the green stitches, again with our yarns in back, we're just going to do a knit 2 together. Easy, knit those 2 together. Okay, now bring our yarns to the front, and now we need to do a decrease on this. Well, a right slanting decrease for purl stitches like this is a slip slip purl. It's kind of an unusual stitch. You probably would not run across it too frequently. So this is how we're going to do a slip slip purl. We're going to slip both stitches individually knitwise to our right needle. Okay? Then we're going to pass those back to our left needle, slip them back onto our left needle. And now we're going to purl those 2 together through the back loop. So this is how you do a through the back loop purl. You're going to bring your right needle all the way back here and insert it through the back loop, starting with that second stitch up into the first stitch. So you're coming at it from back here through both of those stitches through the back loop, and then purl those 2 together. But you're purling through the back loop, okay? Slip it off. So that is how to do a right slanting decrease. Right leaning, knit 2 together, and then a slip slip purl. So you always want to do those combinations in that same way. You want to combine for a left slanting, you want to do a slip slip knit and then a purl 2 together, or right slanting, knit 2 together, and a slip slip purl. And that's how you will do your decreases. So let me just work for a few stitches ahead here, and then we're going to show you how to do increases. Again, how to do a right leaning and a left leaning increase stitches with double knitting. All right, let's do a few increase stitches with our double knitting. So to do an increase, what we're going to do is we're going to add a green and a pink stitch right in between these 2 pairs of stitches. And we're going to do that by picking up these strands, these kind of horizontal bands, first between the green stitches and insert a green stitch. Then we're going to take a look at the band on the pink side, right there, and we're going to pick that up and make a stitch out of that horizontal band. So first we're going to insert a green stitch, then we're going to insert a pink stitch right in between these 2 pairs of stitches. And we're going to want to make sure that the increase that we do are both leaning in the same direction, so both sides of the fabric have an increase that are leaning the right way. Okay, so here's how we're going to do the green insert stitch. As I mentioned, we're going to identify this little band of yarn between the 2 stitches, that horizontal band, pick that up with a right needle, and we're going to place it on our left needle, and this is going to be our left leaning increase. So we're going to put it on the needle in this fashion from the front to the back. See how it's leaning in that direction, the left way, and we're going to knit that stitch through the back loop. Okay, knit it through the back loop, and now we've increased that green stitch by 1 using that horizontal band. All right, now we're going to bring our yarns to the front, turn our work over so we can identify that horizontal band back there, pick that up with our right needle, and we're going to place it on our stitch from the back to the front. Okay, so now it's on that way, and we're just going to purl that stitch as normal, right through the right loop, right? Just normally like we do any other type of purl stitch. Okay, and bring your yarns back to the back. Okay, so now we've increased a green stitch and a pink stitch in between those two stitches. So that is an increase, and that is a left leading increase. Okay, now let's knit one more pair of stitches, and we'll do this increase again, but this time we will make a right leaning increase. And the right leaning increases are a little bit more difficult, I think, because there's just a little bit less of give in the stitch. But with the same principle, we're going to insert a stitch for each color in between these two pairs and using those bands between them. So here's our band of the green stitch that we're going to do, and we're going to now put it on our left needle from the back to the front. So now it's on our needle the opposite way that it was before. And now we're going to knit that stitch the regular way, but you'll notice that it's going to be kind of tight, but kind of get it in the loop, just the way that you would knit, even though that fabric or that yarn is going to be a little bit of tight on there. And knit that stitch. So with our yarns in front, we are going to turn it over to identify that band of pink yarn between those two stitches. Put it on our left needle from the front to the back, and now we're going to purl it through the back loop. All right, so there you've got now an increase green stitch and an increase pink stitch, and those are both now leaning towards the right. So that is how you complete an increase or decrease stitches in your double knitting. So I hope you found this helpful, everyone. If you liked what you see here, please don't forget to subscribe. You'll receive videos all about knitting tips and tutorials, creative stitches, and fun patterns. Happy knitting, everyone. Thanks for watching.